Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of Event Sustainability Live, brought to you by Event Industry News and sponsored by Evolution Dome. My name is Zach Goodman. I'm part of the DRP group who have brought you this wonderful stage. And we are hosting a ton of content all through today, starting with our first session, which I will introduce in a sec. Just before I get to that, please pop on some headphones for optimal audio. You've got a little volume button on the side as well that you can adjust. For closed captions today, we're looking at this screen over here on my right, your left. That's available in different languages if you download the Interprify app. And for any questions, please scan the QR code on my left, your right. And otherwise, I will come round at the end with a microphone. So the next session is all about the food service industry. So I hope you've all had your breakfast. I'm going to introduce Kevin Watson, who is from the Levy UK and Ireland group. Over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Zach. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. So good morning. Thanks for coming along. I'm not going to get... I had a look at the agenda, and there's so much content going on here over the next couple of days. And from my perspective, I don't want to get into a lot of the big technical detail that all happens behind the scenes. I thought I'd make it a bit simpler, which is how we've kind of approached our business. As I say, I'm part of Levy UK. I'll explain a bit who they are at the minute, and I suppose the responsibility we have within the kind of reducing carbon emissions and setting us up for a more sustainable future. So, first of all, I just want to talk about why we do it in the company. It's not a checklist for us. I'm a business director within the business. I report into the managing director, who is also really passionate about making a difference. And rather than always looking at the pound and pence off that and just looking at where's the growth coming from, we do have a mantra in the business that if we treat the planet and our people well, then, you know, the business will come anyway. And we have a responsibility to the planet and our people there. So for us, you know, that becomes a core value. And I'm really proud. You know, we have over 1,500 full-time employees, up to 14,000 variable employees at any time within our business. And if we don't set that tone and culture, then we'll never really kind of move forward in what we're doing. So why even bother about it? So food and drink within the whole global system makes up for about 28% of the emissions. So it's really key that we do it. You know, up until this year, I think the first year at COP28 is the first year that really food is on the agenda. Up until now, it's all been focusing on fossil fuels and the kind of larger economy pieces. But, you know, food and drink has a massive part to play in it within the ecosystem, and we need to talk, we need to fix that out a little bit more. Just to give a bit of context of the why, and Levy UK, so we are part of Compass Group, and within that, we are the largest food service provider in the UK and globally. Within the UK, you probably recognise some of the partners that we have, the O2, Tottenham, Twickenham, Chelsea, Wimbledon, the championships, and also ESL London, where we're standing today. We have been the partner here for the last 23 years. So, you know, and within that, we do 35 million meals a year we serve. So that's across the spectrum, so it's kind of vast. And if you ask why I do it, you know, it's like actually about making a change at scale and really trying to make a positive impact from what I can influence and what I can help change. And for people in events, I just thought I'd pull out. So we all know the big events we see, like Wimbledon and football, and you see the hospitality that goes on within there. But more granularly, the non-event day stuff that you don't see, we actually do about 8 million conference and event days on top of that. So we're sitting in ESL today. ESL has about 4 million people a day come through it. But in all of our stadia, we're feeding delegates every day as well. So, you know, it's a really important key part of our infrastructure that we do. So for me, I'm not I'm an operator. I come from an operations background. I have for many years. But, from looking at, the part that we want to play, I feel very strongly about trying to make a difference and trying to make a difference for the people who work in our environment, for people who work outside our environment. So I took on the job as net zero lead 2 years ago to really kind of work along with the SMEs who were giving us all the insight and information on how we change, but actually to be able to work with the operators to really change the culture within our business. So here is kind of just a bit of bits that I do. So I look at the kind of culture piece within the business, and I think that was important 2 years ago, and I'm going to talk through some of that. We went and put out a very clear plan on how we would go forward, obviously with the advice of our consultants and other SMEs that sit within our business, looking at speaking to the teams and making sure that they had a kind of sustainability team that sat within there. We have an online sustainability action plan that we put in place that we get our teams to fill in twice a year. And it's no mean feat. We have 58 venues, and getting everyone to row in the same direction, giving them the same piece of information is very different from having one building and one venue. So for me, it was about keeping that as simple as possible. We use food steps, so our carbon foot calculation, so on all our menus, two parts to kind of help support the education of our team. So when they're writing menus together, what they're doing to what goes on the menus, and then for our customers to enable them to make the right decisions. And then more technically, we use them as an organisation to validate our Scope 3 emissions. So whatever we're buying, which for this year's impact report equated to about 2 million lines of individual items that we've bought as an organisation, and they've gone away and they're currently putting that through their system to validate for us so that we can put our impact report out at the end of the year. We've got wider industry initiatives, so I've got one of them on a further slide down. And then working along with our venues, the same with our teams. Everybody's at a very different stage, so it's my job to make sure that we can plumb in with our clients at the right time to make sure that as a service partner, we're living up to their ambitions if they're kind of ahead of the curve. And if they're scratching their head going, how the hell do we even start to put a kind of net zero plan or a sustainability plan into place, that we're there to help support them with that. So, it's from a kind of food service perspective, it's about being a partner who can go in and talk about it and have people in the business who are passionate and really kind of help drive different venues forward at different stages and being nimble enough to do that. So it's, I look around today, everybody's got a different objective, there's a different strategy, and as a business and different businesses, everybody's at other stages of that. So defining our initiatives, as I said, we have signed up to the SBTI, so the Scientific Based Targets Initiative. So on a yearly basis, we have to put our impact report. Our year runs from October to September, so we're just finalising our impact report for this year. Last year's impact report showed an emissions reduction of 33% across scopes 1, 2 and 3. So we know that the slides further down, the initiatives that we've put into place, they know that they're working, but it's all about now refining that and then really pushing that forward. So as you can see here, we have a really ambitious, so we are part of Compass UK and Ireland, managing across healthcare, schools, different sectors. For us, we look after sports, leisure and hospitality. They have a climate net zero target of 2030, and Levy UK and Ireland have a 2027. So it's not, nobody can sit here and say it's not full of intent and ambition. And what I want to try and demonstrate is that we're not just saying it for the sake of saying it either. It's not all, we don't even talk about removals until we get to 2027, even though we talk about it a lot behind the scenes, because obviously there's a financial piece around about that. But for us, it's making sure that we have a clear plan for our operators that will help will reduce the carbon emissions within the business. Some key things that we've done already. So All of our menus are, we're pushing to local and seasonal, looking at that supply chain, buying British. So, we're sitting in November now. We shouldn't see berries or anything on our menu anymore, or green beans. We should be with plums and apples and carrots and parsnips and all those lovely kind of brassicas that come through this time of year. We put an air freight ban in place 2021, and this is how you support changing our culture. We used to walk into our fridges and go, why have they got green beans from Kenya, and why do they have strawberries from Spain? And we'd have to turn around and look at ourselves and say, that's because we're allowing our teams to buy the produce from those countries. It's out of their control. They're going onto a system that was there. So we put an air freight ban in 2021 for all fruit and vegetables, working with our suppliers on that. So they're now contracted only to give us fruit and vegetables that come in from the UK, so that's why we say about 80%, but there is out-of-season stuff. Now we get to like tomatoes and stuff like that we just can't. But if you were to try and bring a strawberry from South Spain this time of year, it would be rotten by the time it got onto your plate. So putting the air freight ban into place was a really critical key part of us getting to a strategy of getting seasonal. And I think, as I was saying before, using a food service company, I think, has a bigger opportunity than in retail, and we hear about this all the time. Like, people can go in all year round, and the consumer will always demand strawberries and mango and green beans, the stuff that they can buy now. Where for us, we are re-engineering our menus to make them as carbon efficient as possible, still making, we wouldn't be a business, we wouldn't sell anything if it wasn't tasty, delicious. But actually, we know that it's coming from, it's not been flown in, and that's where I think food service has an opportunity to really make a difference at scale versus retail. And everyone should kind of, if you're should be making that choice. But sometimes the consumer will make the choice if it's in front of them, so just about taking it away. Plant-forward approach, so we're not about making everybody vegan either. But 50% of all our menus across the estate are now plant-based. But as a commercial business, we, back in 2019, we were procuring over 600 ton of red meat a year. We're now down to just over about 250 ton, because we've re-engineered our menus so they're a bit more either reducing the amount of meat in it, so it's more plant forward, or changing over to less carbon intensive meats like chicken and fish, and re-engineering the menus, venison, and that's allowed us to kind of change the proposition. So for us, people will come along, and I think there will be fatigue if we continue to say you must go plant-based, plant-based, plant-based. I think we definitely need to eat a lot more plants. I definitely eat a lot more plants than I used to, but if we wouldn't be a commercial business if we didn't give the choice either. So it's about reducing and taking red meat out as much as possible, changing over to like lower carbon meats, and replacing a lot of where it would have been meat with vegetables, so a kind of plant-forward approach. We did deliver COP26. I don't know why it still gives me terrors. I was the strategic operational lead for that, which I suppose really sparked my interest in making a difference and continuing to do that. But we hear about legacy all the time, and the legacy sometimes goes, but we took a lot of the learnings from that, and we still use that and reference point that in our business every day. So this is a copy of our roadmap. And for us, it was about keeping it simple. A lot of the technical stuff sits behind this. We have got a baseline. We do this on a yearly basis where we're putting out our impact report. But, we have 1,400 full-time employees, 14,000 variable casual employees. They're not academics or scientists either. So anything we put forward to them must be really simple for them to understand. And we know that these key things work. So when we talk about trying to change a food service company, there's a lot. We know that 83% of our emissions sit within scope 3, sit within our supply chain. That's out of the control of our team. So we're working hard in the background. But when we talk about our teams, we keep it really simple. So rolling out, as I said, Footsteps as an educational tool. all red meat. So we were buying, meat from Southeast Asia, from Poland, from South America. We're now, within Levy, 100% of any red meat we now buy is from, it's UK Red Tractor assured. All of our fresh poultry is UK Red Tractor assured. And it's about, knowing sustainability is also the holistic view as well. It's about knowing where your produce is coming from. So, British, higher welfare standards, but then, you're not bringing it in from out the UK, so you're reducing the emissions on this. We asked our teams to start looking at the use of non-dairy with it when you're making desserts. And this was 2022. We asked our teams to start to look at that. Controversially, we're meat is really hard to take off menus at times. You can make your brownie vegan today, your lemon drizzle cake, your scones. Nobody would even notice. Now we are switching over to where we use a British plant-based products. So working with we're going off to see Glebe Farm next week to talk to them about their produce. But we use British UK rapeseed oils, sunflower oil, so the emulsifiers that we're replacing within the produce. And we see this it was a key strategic part. And you'll see as we go down, it was like a transition. When we got to 2023, we asked the teams to go fully dairy-free. And we're probably sitting about 85% of our estate across Levy for probably the 20 million desserts that we do a year are now sitting at plant-based or dairy-free. And this is where we can really start to see where the dairy element within our procurement, within our Scope 3 emissions, is starting to come down. And it all kind of ties round as it comes back. Single-use plastics we've heard about. What else do we have? Customers. And the ones in white are, why they're in white, it's the ones that set out a venue. It's like we have something like 15,000 cars in the business, and they've all become electric over the last 2 years. Moving forward, we only use MCS 1 to 3 fish. So again, when our teams go to buy that, they can only, that's all our suppliers are contracted to give us. So it kind of, again, looking at the stocking and looking forward to the future. Other commitments there, looking at our food waste, tackling that, looking at the emissions of that, looking at the initiatives. There's a whole education piece happened that year. When you can't deal with waste through production or what you're buying, and we do have surplus food. We work in big venues where people over-order. We work in retail. Then venues, I'm in XL today. XL work with Oleo, so the food waste heroes to... so they'll call them at night time and say, I've got 20 portions, there's something left over, can you collect it? And it's distributed within the next, on that day. So you're dealing with your surplus. When you do have surplus, dealing with it at the end of it. And, we work with Fair Share, Too Good To Go, Felix Project, because they all have a different offer to provide depending on your business. So making sure the solutions were in place. And as you can see, we asked all of our teams to be dessert-free by the end of 2023. So, and we're definitely a big step forward there. Prioritising fruit and veg from the UK. I'm in the middle of doing a case study on how we're using the LCA, so life cycle analysis. So using all of the emissions factors from cradle to grave. The tomato is a really good example of that. In the UK, we grow tomatoes without the use of greenhouses, fertilizers from April time through to this time of year. We've had quite a mild October, but then we will switch over to European after that. And we'll say, well, why? We can grow tomatoes here in the UK. And it's like, well, because in using the life cycle analysis, we know that we have to start to grow the tomato in a greenhouse, which will use more energy. So when we're looking at the different elements that make the growing of the tomato, we know that actually it's more carbon intensive, and we use a lot of tomatoes in the business. So we'll switch over to a European tomato from this time of year, using the same supplier, sitting down with them, really understanding what they're up to. We also have a commitment to regenerative farming by 2027, and we know that it's not possible at the minute because the infrastructure isn't there in the UK. I mean, myself and our MD, our culinary directors, we've been to visit about 14, 16 farms this year to really understand what's going on in the ecosystem of our business, to understand how they can plumb into that, how we can commit to them, some of the challenges they're facing, so we can start to look at it in a real kind of circular way. So, as I said, how do we put that into practice? I thought the best example would be to look at ESL. So we've been the partner in ESL for 23 years. I was venue director here for my first 4 years within, when I started with Levy. I had 4 years of a regional role, and then I've been 2 years in my current like sustainability director role. So again, it's like, you know, having an operator's view, I think you need to have passion and drive to make a difference. You know, that's what I feel I can bring. But if you brought somebody from externally, which we do, we have lots of SMEs who can give us advice. But actually, if you don't have somebody who understands the business, especially a business our size, and it's really hard to connect with the operators and make a change, which I feel that we've probably maybe got to. You know, some days I look and go, oh my God, there's such a hill to climb. But then you kind of go, well, actually I'm making a difference, so we kind of keep on going. Look at ESL, and so from the 2 slides previously, what they have done at ESL, so 80% of the menus are now only British and seasonal produce. 50% of menus that we serve, and just because you'll probably go out into the concourse, so ESL business is split in 2. We have our conference and events business, and we have our retail business. We do about 30% of the retail for ESL, but we do 100% of the conference and event business. So when ESL's not set up for exhibitions, we do large corporate events like Adobe, Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, which bring about 2.5, 3 million people in per year, but generally then 4 or 5 meals or servings per day. So there's a much bigger opportunity within C&E than what we probably see today. So don't go outside and look at the units outside and say, what the hell was he talking about? I'm not really in control of a lot of the units out here. It's the much bigger machine that goes behind ESL when we're not in kind of an exhibition day mode. So if you were to ask for a catering pack, like 50% of the menus are now vegetarian or vegan. All poultry, as I said, is like UK Red Tractor Assured that they use here. There's no red meat now on any of the menus, so if you were to get a menu pack from the venue here, you wouldn't find any meat. Where 10 years ago, you know, we had beef stroganoff, we had lasagna, we had like beef rendang, where that's now replaced with, you know, chicken korma. It's replaced with like a vegetable lasagna. And all these things are really material when you look at the size and scale of that. All desserts will be plant-based by January. They have been about 80% this year. We have an amazing pastry team here, so we are cooking on site and developing on site. So they've gone through the whole cycle, every menu pack. So all of your desserts here will be plant-based by January 23 when it comes through. No single-use plastics, carbon labeling. The venue, you know, there's now the water fountains in place. And as we said, as a business, and this it sits on this slide, but it's right across Levy. Back in 2018, when we put our first kind of Levy Cares pillars out, which was like better for the people, better for the planet, better for the environment, we committed to get to living wage by 2023, which is the year we sit in now. And I'm really proud, you know, it's not as easy as it sounds at time. You know, we have a lot of people at workforce at different levels, from kind of entry level right through, but we become a living wage employer back in January 2021, and we've now signed up to the Living Wage Directive, and we have 14,000 variable employees. And from that, I think, you know, with a balance of our kind of sustainability commitments through to our people commitments, we're seeing our retention rates. You know, people want to work for companies who aren't just talking about stuff, and they actually want to work for companies who can see things happening and moving within their business, and where you talk about it as part of your culture. So, for people who are in events, we're saying, how can we impact an event? Now, there's lots of slides. We can slice this up differently depending on what your business. I thought because we were here, it's just kind of going, what can we do? So 1,000 delegate lunch. So if you were to offer a beef pie, a lamb pie, venison pie, or a plant-based option, using this is climato labeling, so we put in what the spec is. It tells us what the what the kind of carbon output per dish is. So you multiply that by 1,000. As you can see, in beef, it's 3,000 kg of CO2. Lamb, because it's slightly less, it's not reared for as long and not as intensive, 1,700. Then you come down to venison and plant-based, you come into like 350 kg CO2. So we thought it would be nice just to put the car equivalent, 20,000 cars, if you were to sell 1,000 portion of beef pie versus 2,500 if you were to do the plant-based. And it would roughly, venison and chicken would roughly sit in the same thing. So when you're planning menus from a food service perspective, those choices have a massive material difference and change on the impact, and that's how, that 172,000 tonne that we have, we can really start to bring down. I just thought I'd point out, this is my last slide, some of the culture stuff that we've done within the business, and it wasn't going in guns blazing. We had some people who were really interested in making a difference, and they were really embracing it and moving forward. We had some teams who were petrified, scope 1, 2, 3, like carbon neutral, like what does it all mean? They didn't understand it. So for us, it was about having a really simple approach to that. So we put our roadmap out in January 2022. We'd done a sustainability day up in Edgbaston for 500 of our team members and went through it in a really simple format like this for the whole day to really let them understand this is where we're going to, this is what we're up to, this is the support that will be in place. We have a website that's in place. We put our digital sustainable action plan that every venue has to fill in twice a year. And it's not like a marking exercise. It's kind of going, have you done this? Have you considered that? The key actions are in there. And as a business, we, any contracted bonuses, sustainability makes up 30% of that. So if they don't want to do it for the right reason, they'll definitely do it because it'll hurt their back pocket. So, we're the only sector within the UK that do that. So I've done over 50 client visits, going out, speaking to them, talking to them about our plan, understanding what we're up to, doing lots of team talks in this kind of format, just going through the day. We've done 2 conferences to follow up from that. We've brought all our team members back in. This is what you've achieved. Tell them about that. Keep them engaged. Keep the momentum going. We set up, we have a board meeting. I report to the MD, but the FD, myself, our ops director, we all come together to discuss and actually understand what the strategic plan is, understanding what the financial elements are, but sustainability outweighs sometimes the full commercial conversations, which is great. And we have an internal Instagram page that goes on there. Finishing piece on culture, and this is me done. We have a 90-acre farm that we work with Dr. Vincent Walsh. He's a regen aggregative specialist. And we hear about biodiversity, soil health all the time, and what does that mean to the future? So we invest £150,000 to Regen Farmco every year as a partner. And in the last year, we've taken over 500 team members up there on kind of daily workshops, like planted trees, shrubs, water, but at the same time doing workshops to really understand what kind of biodiversity means to the future food security for us. So very brief snapshot of how we're making a change in a very practical way for the food service industry. I could talk to you for another hours on all the technical stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but I thought it was easier to do a building block part of that today. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Any questions that I can bring the microphone over to you? Beat me to it.
Okay, thank you. Saves me typing it into Slido. I'm just interested, when it came to that cultural change piece, bringing everybody on board with you, which can be really overwhelming sometimes. What do you think was the thing that people were most resistant to or nervous of, and how did you bring them round?
It's always the unknown is the first part of it, the unknown of change, people not knowing what the change will be. And I think you know, we've heard about it for years, and I think it was really technical. And I think that's why I kind of put myself forward, because I wanted to bring it forward in a much simpler approach. The language, you know, like everybody has a sustainability lead now that's in their business, and I mean, I've become self-taught, I suppose, in the last 3 years, and become really knowledgeable around about the technical elements of that and the different stages. But a lot of our workforce didn't. So I think it was about bringing it down to the ground level and not overcome like these building blocks, and genuinely starting from a bottoms-up approach, and then hopefully the top part catches up again. And I think the response has been good. And you know, and now Adam Fargan, he's our executive chef in Wimbledon at the Champs, and he'd done a piece to the One Show just before the first day of Champs last year. And I was so proud. He's there talking about everything that they've put into place at Wimbledon. It's all the stuff that we've been talking about, and there he is kind of repeating it back. And then I go, it's really landed and they've put into place. So then you know that you're kind of maybe doing your job right, but it is definitely a team effort when we work with an organisation as big as ours. Hope that kind of answer you.
Any other questions?
Hi. I'm still very much learning, but I'm quite interested to understand what you think the future of food waste is. What's the solution? Obviously, discounting food that we can give away to the community or elsewhere, but just interested to see what your thoughts are, whether that's farming, but what are the implications in terms of transporting, peels, and what's the solution? On you.
Yeah, no, it's... I did read something yesterday that, because it does start at home, I think. You know, I come from working class family in Scotland, you know, and we never had waste at home. You know what I mean? Like, this is, you know, I'm 51 this year, so going back kind of 40 years, we never had waste in our home. You know, we used whatever we cooked on a Sunday, we'd end up taking through the week. And we've heard this notionally, and it's just getting back to those basic... I will answer your from a kind of business perspective. But I did read yesterday that they say that home waste has gone down by about 30% in the last 2 to 3 years, which is brilliant, because when people come in, then, you know, they can start to use that within the workplace. But we've been doing a big education piece on this in different stages. It's about what we buy, so not over-ordering. You know, I work in a venue like this. 10 years ago, we would have been requested, and organisers would have bought, say, 120 or 130% of what they actually needed, so that nobody would run out. Where now it's become a lot, from the planning perspective, it's become a lot more acceptable to actually run, if you've got an offering of 3 things, to run out of one of them on the day, and not apologise for that. That's what kind of happens. And I know that happens in, like, our box. The O2 is another example where they used to always put in a box for 20, they put food for 25. Now they put food for 15, and then if anybody wants more, then they radio through and they ask, and it brings up again. So that's dealing with it in the organisation piece. Then there's principles round about in the production, so making sure that, you know, that there's whole education pieces going on. Like, rather than having everything going to one bin, we now have every chef should have a food waste container in front of them when they're prepping, understand what their food waste is and seeing it. But the honest answer is it's really collective. It's like everything that we're doing and putting into place, and I think every organisation has to look at food waste in a really kind of holistic way. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all, hence we've put in education there, like in the procurement, production, education to our clients about what we're buying and putting out. When we've got surplus and we can't commercialise it anymore, making sure that we have places like Olio, Fair Share and stuff like that to go to. So it's not a simple thing to tackle, but, you know, I see a lot of more businesses vocalising and talking about it, and that would be the only way to move it on. Yeah, very long-winded.
Thank you. That's all we have time for this session, but please feel free to catch up with Kevin onto the side, and the next session will be starting at 10:40. Thank you.